So I go to work every day in Bassett, Virginia, small town, Southern Virginia, just over the North Carolina line. The company and the town started at the same time, 1902. My great-grandfather was a farmer and a sawmiller. He got the contract to build the railroad through there, and after that, he needed to expand his market, and so he moved up to upstate New York and Michigan, where furniture was made in those days. Ultimately, his wife said, "Why don't we make the furniture here?" And he said, "That's a great idea," and they began to do it. So they built a factory, brought some of the relatives in, and began making bedroom furniture there in Bassett. I attended school there in Bassett Public School until the 9th grade, and I went off to a boys' boarding school, Central Virginia, Woodbury Forest, which I enjoyed very much, and then I went to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. It came time for me to graduate, and in the back of my mind, I wanted to go in the furniture business, and ultimately I wanted to go to work for Bassett. I think in those days, the town of Bassett, Virginia was not big enough for myself and my dad. I had a couple fraternity brothers from Houston, Texas, and said, "Look, you don't want to move back to Bassett, Virginia." So I packed up my Mustang and drove to Houston, and the first Monday I went to the employment office at Finger Furniture Company. It was the largest furniture retailer in Texas in those days. So after 6 years down there in Texas, I began to really want to come back and go to work for Bassett, and it was another unusual situation between my dad and me. He wasn't going to offer me a job, and I didn't want to ask him for one. But I had a good friend in the company, Alan Bowler, who was a real mentor to me, and I'd known since I was a child. And he was in charge of sales and merchandising for our upholstery division. And he called me one day down in Texas, and he said, "When are y'all going to stop this nonsense, and when are you going to come to work for the company?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't been offered a job yet." And he said, "Well, I'm going to give you a job, and we'll tell your dad later." So that's what happened. I snuck up to Hickory, and we drove around and looked for apartments, and he described my responsibilities of what they would be. And in January 1984, I moved from Texas and went to work for Alan Bowler. Subsequent to that, Alan called my dad and said, "We got a new guy down here in sales." And he said, "Who is it?" And he said, "His name's Rob Spilman." So my dad professed to be upset, but I think he was really happy, and he told me so shortly thereafter.
Rob has been a close friend and professional colleague for more than 30 years. In the early 70s, I had one truck, and I was the driver, working with Rob's dad, Bob, and I moved my first load for Bassett Furniture Industries. That was the beginning of a relationship that exists today. Never have I met anyone who cares more about people, their lives, their families, their concerns, their opinions. Rob is one of those individuals who can easily set aside the corporate hat and be the regular guy sitting beside you, interested in you.
Hickory was a great experience for Nancy and me. We loved the town. Our 3 children were born there. While we were there enjoying life, the world was really changing. The Asian imports really began to rule the roost in the furniture business. Jeb Bassett, my cousin, and I went to China at my dad's behest in 1994 for 3 weeks. Actually, we went all over Asia, and we came back and realized that we were going to have to take control of our destiny. What we had built up over a century was at risk right before our eyes. Our solution was to open our own stores through third-party licensees. We did not have the retail staff in place to do it. And our first Bassett store opened in Austin, Texas in 1997. For the next few years we were consumed with that until I became CEO in 2000.
I first met Rob playing golf, and I always admired his sense of humor and his competitive nature on the golf course. I often wondered if he carried those traits to work with him. You know, years later when I went to go work for Bassett, I found that to be true. You know, Rob loves to laugh, but he also loves to win.
2000 was a difficult time to become CEO of a public furniture company in the United States. Really was at the forefront of a very tough decade. In our case, we had to close many factories to adjust our capacity to our business. And then, of course, we had the Great Recession. So 2000 to 2010, very tough on the company, on a lot of people, and on the industry. We got through that. In 2011, our fortunes began to improve. We began to really understand where we fit in the retail concept. Our custom furniture capabilities had matured, and we began to open new stores and grow the company again, hire people again, and we've been on that track for the last 5 years. Very gratifying to say that.
Rob is genuine and honest, and I will cherish our relationship forever.
Rob, congratulations on receiving this well-deserved award. On behalf of the management team and employees, we want to thank you for your leadership and your friendship.
The Pillar of the Industry Award is a great honor, and I'm proud to receive it. But more so than that, it's a recognition of the hard work and teamwork, not only of the 114 years of Bassett, but also of these last 20 years. 15 years ago, people may have been saying, is Bassett going to make it? And I am very proud to be up here on behalf of all of the teammates at Bassett accepting recognition and an honor for our company.